there was a back and forth this morning on Twitter. It was Newsom taking shots at Dana Perino. He tried taking shots at Gutfeld. Now, I'm not going to knock him for that. I mean, how many, I basically make a living making fun of our comedy dwarf, Greg Gutfeld. But the point is, Newsom is trying to copy Trump's Twitter style. And he's doing this thing now with his 2 paid staffers that write all the tweets for him, where he addresses the goings-on in the voice of what would be Donald Trump's tweets. A lot of caps, a lot of nicknames. But essentially what it comes down to is Newsom doing what a lot of Democrats have done in the last 8 or 10 years in the process of running their states and cities into the ground. They've focused on Donald Trump because in largely liberal states, Trump is unpopular, so people will align with you emotionally if you attack Trump. But what do they actually have to show for that in their home state? The answer is actually zero.
He knows what he's talking about.
Okay, we're about a year out from the wildfires. You know how many houses have been rebuilt? None. They've had about seven, permits granted. You know, the high-speed rail boondoggle everybody knows is $1 billion over budget. They never built a mile of track. Newsom took office vowing to make homelessness his number one priority. It's doubled since he got into office. As a governor, he is an abject failure. That being said, he came into last week polling at 38% with Californians. He's now up to 56% because he got mad at Donald Trump. So he sees a lane because he's trying to, again, curry favor, not for anything in his state. He's done with his state. You're on your own rebuilding. They're going to turn the Palisades into affordable housing and, bring back some more woke bail reforms just to make nice life nice and fun on the streets of L.A.
Everything woke turns to
yeah, really, including the state of California. But he sees this as a means to go become like some type of a 2028 frontrunner. There's a big vacuum in the Democratic Party. Obviously, he aspires to run for higher office. And he's decided, well, I'll be the guy who picks the fight with Trump. And again, it's a good angle for popularity. But if you're actually pulling a voting lever because you want something done for your life, then you don't want a politician who copies Donald Trump's tweets. You want a politician who copies Donald Trump's policies.
Bingo.
Okay, as Newsom is firing out these tweets today, Bed Bath & Beyond just announced that they're not going to operate stores again in California. Now, they had a financial restructuring in 2023. Okay, but in terms of whether or not they were going to come back to brick and mortar retail, the CEO issued a statement today saying that California's policies are so anti-business that they can no longer afford to operate in California in a brick and mortar fashion. Yeah, they'll have websites that'll ship items to California, but they're not actually going to operate there because his policies, his big tax and spend policies, have made it impossible to do business when you're overregulated to the extent they are. Playboy, think about that. Playboy just announced they're moving their offices down, I believe, to Nashville, Tennessee. They're leaving California. Playboy actually announced this in the magazine 3 months ago, but nobody read the article. But the point is, as he's driving away legacy businesses that are leaving his state, the people that he's appealing to are the ones who aren't affected by that. Rich Californians who just hate Donald Trump as a way of being. There's a lot of people who devote a lot of their life's energy to hating Donald Trump so they don't have to look inward at the things they hate about themselves.
That's true. That is true.
Okay, here is Joe Scarboro reading some hard truth to Gavin Newsom on Morning Joe today. And you know this. I consider Joe Scarboro absurd. Okay, he spent 4 years calling Donald Trump Hitler. And then when Donald Trump won the election, he showed up at his house and asked if they could be friends.
That was embarrassing.
He went on TV, if you remember, before Joe Biden was forced off the presidential ticket because his brain glitched out. He went on TV that day and said this was the sharpest Joe Biden had ever been.
That was embarrassing.
Oh, big time. Okay, so I consider him like a liberal propagandist. That being said, if you are a liberal propagandist, it's because you want your party to be in power. And he recognizes in this moment that what Gavin Newsom is doing is not actually landing in the real world. He looks like a loser. It's like, yeah, if you copy a Trump tweet and do it in all caps and everybody goes, ha ha, I see you're making fun of Trump. That's great. But the joke gets old the third time and the fifth time, and heaven forbid the 35th time, which is what we're dealing with now. But more importantly than that, what Scarboro was talking about is that Trump isn't Gavin Newsom's opponent. It's not. Okay, and this has been the biggest failure of Democratic leadership in the Trump era. And I've told you this before. They all run for office against Trump now. They don't run against their opponent. They just try to cater to the people, the emotionalist wing of the liberal party that hates Trump. Yeah, people do it in New York. People run for office in New York like they'll run for comptroller and be like, he'll stand up for Donald Trump. He won't get pushed around by Trump. You're like, no, he won't be affected by Trump. He won't interact with Trump. Trump won't know who he is. But that's what people do in really blue states. And it's one of the reasons they're failing is they're not focused on the quality of life in their cities and their states. That's the problem in California. They burnt down 18,000 homes. Is Gavin Newsom out there expediting the process to rebuild those homes? Nope. Homeless population has doubled. Is Gavin Newsom doing anything to stop the influx of more migrants that will only increase the homeless population and stress out the debt's resources even more? No, nothing to do with the quality of life in your state. Everything to do with, I don't like Trump and you guys don't either. So vote for me so I can raise your taxes again. Imagine being California, highest tax state in the history of the country. They have a massive wildfire and the state doesn't have the resources to put it out because Gavin Newsom was diverting fire hydrant water into the ocean to preserve some rare fish that was part of the climate agenda. They didn't have the firefighters. They had a shortage of manpower or person power in Newsom's state because they prioritized a lot of DEI initiatives that put a lesbian fire chief in charge, which is fine. Although if she's a lesbian, she probably doesn't know a lot about hoses. Hey-o! But the point is, nobody cares when a fire breaks out what the sexual orientation of the firefighters is. We just call up and say, hey, can you send a truck with water? Put out the fire. And California couldn't do that. Despite paying the highest taxes in the world, the fires raged on. Why? Because they prioritized things like DEI. But Gavin Newsom, in terms of a man who has destroyed the quality of life in his state, he's, if you look around the country right now, the only people who truly appreciate Gavin Newsom's leadership are the stockholders in U-Haul because they have printed money on the fact that so many people have fled California at the rate they have because of his leadership. But in terms of people responding to his tweets, like he's being mean to Trump, I like it. Okay. They are getting nothing in the form of a deliverable. And this is what Joe Scarboro was talking about to his credit. Clip one.
See, the Democrats are trying to find their footing, and it's quite embarrassing, actually. I mean, Gavin Newsom, have you seen what he's doing online? And say, just take a deep breath. Yeah. Don't try to turn the ship 180 degrees and they don't know what to do. I have a good idea. Instead of trying to school Donald Trump, talk into the camera about affordability. Talk about making groceries more affordable. Talk about what you're going to do for housing. Talk about what you're going to do for energy prices that continue to go up. We heard the congressman yesterday talk about energy prices skyrocketing in New Jersey. Don't try, as I've been saying, Donald Trump's not on the ballot in 26. He's not on the ballot in 28.
I admire your honesty.
Never get to play that for Joe Scarboro, but I'll play it again one more time. Joe Scarboro.
I admire your honesty.
He's telling Newsom the truth. Now he's telling him the truth. Necessity is the mother of invention. Joe Scarboro spent the last 10 years telling people to run against Donald Trump. The reason he's changing his tack now, and nobody kind of reads between the lines on this, is Joe Scarboro realizes Trump is winning. Trump is as popular as he's ever been. He's at the highest recorded approval number he'll ever have. He is at the highest recorded approval number within his own party. And the right direction, wrong direction metric has changed by about 30 points since he took over for Joe Biden.
Biden is such a disaster.
So running on I'm not Trump is no longer a good thing in the eyes of Joe Scarboro. That, what you just heard right there, was as close as he'll ever come to admitting that you should be running as if you're more like Donald Trump than less. Okay, but Gavin Newsom can't do that because his policies are an abject failure for his state. Again, there are more people leaving California than any other state in America. Look at it like a restaurant. If there's a line to get in, you got a good restaurant. If there's a line to get out, people don't like the food, okay? And all the Trump tweets in the world aren't going to change the fact that you suck at your job.
And I'm out here in the real world, and I know what's right or wrong or bullshit.
One of the funniest things I've seen in media this week is Chuck Todd was on one of those CNN panels. You know, CNN has these primetime panels. It just looks like, those migrant ships that capsize in the middle of nowhere because they're overcrowded. CNN will put like 85 people on a panel. It looks like the table's going to tip over. And then they all have to find unique ways to say Trump is bad and you're a racist, or Trump's not really winning and his voters are mad deep down. So they bring Chuck Todd out of retirement. Chuck Todd took a legacy program, Meet the Press, ran it into the ground. Okay? Along the way, shamed a lot of Republicans and a lot of Trump people and had a lot to say about the state of things. Do you remember the Chuck Todd one where he shamed us? Give you a great Chuck Todd. We were talking about the Hunter Biden laptop hoax. He was calling it a Hunter Biden laptop hoax and said, and shame on you people on the right. Do you remember this?
Instead of Roger Stone and WikiLeaks, it's Rudy Giuliani and some computer guy in Delaware. So this didn't work. So he'll try another planted story or another, Russian.
I have a scotch.
Use some other, discredited Russian propaganda. And for those of you spreading misinformation, shame on you. Shame on you. I don't know how some of you sleep at night who are doing this for a living on television.
Chuck Todd, shame on you. The Hunter Biden laptop not only turned out to be real, but he was convicted in federal court, and several members of the Biden family got presidential pardons.
Are you the big man, Joe?
Yes, that's why they got pardons. But that was Chuck Todd, who's saying, shame on you. Oh, shame on you. How dare you even do that? That happened. That was a real thing. What else is a real thing is it's just seconds before my next guest walked into the studio. This is true. Okay.
Shame on you.
Folks, if you're
I don't know what we're shaming, but I'm happy to be a part of it.
We're shaming a caller named Scott who said, are you having Kennedy on after this? And I said, yes, she's going to be on any minute now. He said, you tell her she is one of the hottest babes who's ever lived. Scott's words.
I'm so glad you're still doing that volunteer work with the blind.
The K-Train.
You are such a wonderful person.
Now, the K-Train, I will have you know, has a lot of male admirers, but she walks around my life dressed like a school shooter. She's got a hat and some thick glasses on, and we get the calls all the time. You'll always see it in any promo she's in. Oh, like Kennedy's so hot. I'm like, well, I walk the halls with a different Kennedy.
I thought I was a big deal because security always escorts me in and out of the building. It's for their protection, not mine.
Scott, if you knew how many times a week Kennedy gets called sir around here because of the hat and the glasses. But Scott was just so funny because he was like talking to me about his wife he's like, my wife says Gavin Newsom should be an underwear model. He called up to bash Gavin Newsom. Then he brought his wife into the conversation about Gavin Newsom, and then he pivoted to the K-Train.
Wow.
There it is. And he was driving, as I believe, as he talked to us.
And you are playing marital counselor in this entire exercise.
Good to see you, pal. Welcome back.
Thanks, Jim.
So this Newsom thing that's been going on is he's basically, he's got like two staffers that are just taking the Trump tweet style, the all caps tweet style. And he's what my son Lincoln would call a try-hard. He's trying too hard.
Yeah.
And some people are responding to it on the left like, oh, MAGA's mad. Nobody cares. They just think he's an a-hole.
Yeah.
But do you think this does anything to redeem the quality of leadership or lack thereof he has exhibited as a homeowner in California, still waiting to see things get rebuilt?
No. I mean, every passing day, I get more and more angry at him and Karen Bass. And, it's like, I would be frustrated in the past. It's like part of me had just kind of given up on California Democrat politics, but now I'm actively angry. And I don't like being in that place with politics. And he doesn't care about the anger. I feel is just like a drop in an ocean compared to the number of people who have lost everything. And then there are people like me who can't go back to their homes in the middle of this institutional paralysis where he is the guy who should have his sleeves rolled up. He should be in Altadena and Pacific Palisades once a month at least, just overseeing things, talking to people, reassuring them, talking to builders, talking to businesses, making sure that construction is on track, because the mayor has abdicated her position. He is so unserious. He's doing this little bit. And it makes me so angry because there's a part of him that really feels that way. He feels like he has earned this bravado that Trump shows on Truth Social. He hasn't. He's so empty. He is trying to walk this tightrope and please both sides. All sides hate him. I will tell you from, people who've lost everything in the fire, everyone hates him. And people who used to give millions of dollars to Democrats in statewide races, they're so done with it. And all he has is this kind of weird anti-Trump thing. And even today I read in the New York Post, now they're starting to make the pivot to 2028. He's going to be fighting Trump for a long time. He's not going to be president anymore. And there's no way that Newsom would have the agenda or the legacy that Trump is building within 9 months.
No chance. Kennedy's in studio. Scott calls her the hottest woman who's ever lived.
I'm a hot under the collar, Jim. I just I had such a Zen vibe coming back from Maui.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well.
You just took a tinkle all over my campfire.
Scott's in a different place right now. He's I don't know.
Yeah, I'm worried he's in the bathroom with a handful of Lubriderm.
Scott is now listening to this in the Roy Rogers men's room. Hey, hurry up in there, buddy. What's going on? Where'd all the paper towels go? I'm trying to dry my hands over here, Scott. What's even going on? I find it all fascinating, but you're right. He's trying to become the latest in a long line of Democrats to fail upward.
Yeah.
Because in national politics, it's still viable. They'll be like, I don't like Trump. But Joe Scarboro trashed Newsom, today. He's like, you got to stop this. You're not running against Trump. He's not on the ballot in the midterms. He's not on the ballot in 2028. But I think what Joe Scarboro was trying to actually say just the same is the old business model of saying I'm not Trump is actually now bad because people regard him as doing a lot better in this term than they did in the first one.
Well, I read a headline today that Brian Grazer, who famously has propped up the Democrat Party for decades, voted for Trump in 2024. Yeah. And there are a lot of people who, to Joe Scarborough's point, what he was talking about last week with the National Guard being called into D.C., there are a lot of people who publicly are like, this is an outrage, authoritarianism, this is fascism, this is how it starts. And privately, like, thank God. Oh my God. This is all I've ever wanted. I hate my city. I feel so unsafe. I can't walk to the grocery store.
I just want to walk my dog without a flak jacket. Thank you, Mr. President. And that's the point. A lot of these issues aren't political issues. They're human issues. And if you prioritize humanity, you got to fight.
A lot of people going, wow, I really, now that I think about it, I really don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapons program. I also want the war between Ukraine and Russia to come to an end somehow.
That's the greatest thing in the world is that whenever you want to feel better about your own mental health, click on the For You thread on Twitter and you'll see 1,000 people with Ukraine flags in their bio trashing Trump for ending the war. I'm like, well, you're crazy.
What is wrong with
I don't
people?
even know what's happening.
And if they had a better idea, I would listen to it because I am an anti-war person.
Yeah.
And I would love to come to the conclusion of peace down a new avenue. I am totally open to that. That doesn't involve ceding territory and colonialism and all that nonsense that really puts peace and freedom at the heart and center of our foreign policy and global foreign policy. But that they don't have that. They don't have that nuance. They don't have they just have the I love Ukraine. I hate Trump. I love war because Trump wants to end the war.
And it's like it's so like it's childlike transactional like foot stomping. Yes. Not even childlike. It is childish. Childlike would be like, it kind of
That's
resembles
adorable.
a child.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just embarrassing.
Childish is the kid screaming on the airplane that you can't escape.
Oh, man.
And that's where we are at with our leftist politics. They're the kid who's holding the plane hostage by shrieking like a wounded pterodactyl.
And nobody wants to listen anymore.
I don't.
No. If you're one of those parents, buy that kid a parachute fast, because the Trump man is not having
Get him out of here. Get him out.
Somebody who fought back at the legal level. I mean, this is crazy, okay? Now that this guy spent so much time suing the Biden administration that now that Biden's out of office, he actually has enough free time to write a book. And it's a tremendous book. It's called The Last Line of Defense, How to Beat the Left in Court. We, of course, are talking to the great Missouri Senator, Eric Schmitt. Hey, man.
Hey, Jimmy, how are you, man?
I didn't realize how many times you sued Biden until I saw the publicity for this book. I'm like, wow, you were that busy. And now you've got... Yeah.
I used to say I get up in the morning, I sue Joe Biden. I go to bed, I get up in the morning, I sue him again. I go to bed, I sue him again. That was kind of true, actually. There was a lot to do. Sadly, there was a lot to do.
But I think the average person kind of almost had the luxury of being blissfully unaware of just how crazy things had gotten in terms of the day-to-day goings on, not only Biden, but I even go back to Obama on this. I was talking about debanking earlier. They were using a lot of laws to essentially just box in people didn't hold their political views. Is that how you'd characterize it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, too, that now we're on the other side of the fever dream, which broke in November of 2024. It's very important for us to not completely forget what this was. I mean, that 4-year period, this was an era of lockdowns and compulsory COVID shots and open borders and DEI struggle sessions and CRT in our schools and a censorship regime that the Biden administration set up. That was the biggest assault on the First Amendment we've ever seen in our country's history. And so when I was Attorney General in Missouri before I had this job, you kind of saw the landscape. And why I wrote the book, Last Line of Defense, How You Beat the Left in Court, was I saw the landscape. So when the vaccine mandates came down, we sued them. We took it to the Supreme Court. We won. When the student loan debt forgiveness case, happened, we took that to the Supreme Court and we won. We filed the Missouri versus Biden lawsuit that exposed this censorship enterprise before Elon Musk had even bought Twitter. We took the deposition of Elvis Chan, the FBI agent that was pre-bunking the Hunter Biden laptop story, Anthony Fauci. So on every front, Jimmy, we were in the mix. We stood up, we fought back, and we held the line until President Trump could return, and we had a return of common sense. But I think this book, Last Line of Defense, is a playbook. They're not going to stop. We got to know what we're up against, and we got to be willing to fight in every corner.
Amen. We're talking to Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt. One of the things we covered a lot at great length was the effort you guys made against student loan forgiveness. And that one drove me crazy because for all intents and purposes, what they were doing, in my opinion, was buying votes and doing nothing to address the actual cause of student debt, which is the soaring rate of tuition. And if you just reduce everything to the dumb decisions young people make, why can't I have blackjack forgiveness, Senator? I lost a lot of money in those casinos. Where is my government check, Senator?
That's right. Well, maybe that's next for the Democrats. It did feel like it was like somebody running for class president, right?
Yeah.
It's like, we're going to have free pizza or free Subway for everybody. And that's kind of what the political thing was. But, in the book, Last Line of Defense, we kind of take you behind the scenes. As it played out, I mean, everybody thinks it's a given that we were going to win that thing. Yeah. And it would have cost taxpayers $500 billion. In my motivation, I grew up in a working class neighborhood, right? And most of the guys I grew up around, some of them didn't go to college, some of them worked their way through college. Some didn't go to college at all. The idea that the truck driver, the waitress was going to pay for the unpaid debt of a theater professor at Harvard is insane. Yep. Right. So that was it. But if Missouri wouldn't have filed the lawsuit, Jimmy, it would have happened because we had standing. So in a lawsuit, you got to have somebody that's actually been injured by something, right? Yeah. And so we had this loan servicing agency called Mohila. It gave us standing because we filed that lawsuit. We were able to win, and the taxpayers came out ahead. But it just goes to show you how crazy they were and what they were willing to do. Yeah,
it was absolutely nuts. And when you talk about that whole idea that a trucker who didn't go to college is paying for somebody else's loan, it's like imagine getting a bill in the mail from Applebee's for a dinner you didn't go to. It's like, at least mail me a mozzarella stick, but we didn't even get the mozzarella stick. We're talking to Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt, the book, The Last Line of Defense. Another thing that I took away from reading this is that you kind of get the feeling that the Democrats have given up on the ability to sell ideas and are just trying to force them down our throats now.
Yeah, that's right. And I think COVID, if it showed anything, it was that if you give people who never should have power in the first place, that kind of power, what they're willing to do with it, it's scary. And I think power doesn't necessarily corrupt, but it does reveal. And I think COVID was really revealing. And so, for example, in Missouri, we sued 50 plus school districts for their mask mandates. And we had parents be co-plaintiffs with us because they were writing in, Jimmy. And a lot of people were just ignoring this. They were afraid to stand up and fight back. So we, on the peak day of Omicron, for example, by way of coincidence, we sued all these school districts because we said, there's no evidence that this helps the 5-year-old. Like, they're more likely to die of a dog attack than COVID, but yet you're forcing these kids to do it. It's hurting their learning and their psychological well-being. So they were willing to push pretty much anything. And think about that guy, that truck driver, the guy swinging the hammer, who just wants to provide for his family. He's got bills. He was going to lose his job because he didn't take the COVID shot. Like, people should be able to make that own, that decision themselves. But they were drunk with power. And that's an understatement.
Yeah, I think in a weird way, it kind of played into our hands on the Republican side of the aisle because people saw just how much damage government can do. And I think COVID and I think a lot of these policies advanced by the Biden agenda are the best argument for limited government. I mean, and that's the kind of the case you're making in this book in a roundabout way, are you not?
Yeah, and I actually, if you want to kind of get into the demographics of it, if you want to understand part of the reason why the Democrats have such a problem with young men in particular, younger voters in general, but young men in particular, well, think about what was going on. You had these struggle sessions in schools where and we talk about it in the book, Last Line of Defense, we uncovered privilege walks. Like, kids were being forced to do privilege walks in schools and apologize for things they had nothing to do with. And they were forced to miss school and wear masks. And I think they've essentially the result for the Democrats now is they can't really win these debates. It's about aggregating power. And that's why, we have to win elections. That's important too, but we got to be willing to fight in the courtroom. And this book isn't written for other lawyers. This book is written for the people who listen to you and want to understand what was going on there and what are the lessons that we can take from it.
Now, when you say it's written for the people who listen to me, that makes me think it's scratch and sniff. And I didn't know
these are my people. Listen, Jimmy, these are my people. Okay?
You're damn right they are. All right. Give me one more. We're talking to Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt, the book, The Last Line of Defense. As a guy who is a former attorney general, you're now working as a senator, obviously, and we're thrilled to have you. Okay. Do you see the path forward as the Democrats course correcting, or do you expect them to keep running these same plays? Because I haven't gotten the feeling in the post-2024 postmortem that they've committed to changing anything. Like, the playbook looks the same. So this isn't really an analysis of the past so much as it is, I guess, your game plan going forward?
Yeah, Trump derangement syndrome is a powerful thing, man. And they haven't gotten over it. I mean, I actually still think some of my Senate colleagues, they can't believe it. I mean, they tried to put Trump, in jail for the rest of his life. They tried to sideline it with the Russiagate the first time. Then when he decided to run again, they were going to bankrupt his family and put him in jail. He almost took a bullet twice, and he's back. And they can't really believe that he's back on the mountaintop and he's being super successul. And they don't really have a message, and they don't have a messenger. All they have is opposing him. I mean, look, they're like for crime in D.C. now. Like, if President Trump came out in support of oxygen, these guys would be like opposed to oxygen. Like, it's insane. So I don't think to answer your question, Jimmy, I don't think they've hit rock bottom yet. I just think they're in this place where the left has captured their party, and they're on the wrong side of all these 80-20 issues over and over again.
Amen. Well, there's a great path forward for everybody who wants one. The book is called The Last Line of Defense. Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt, how do you feel? I know you're excited about the book. How do you feel about the Chiefs' chances this year?
They got a similar squad, right? And they've been so successful. And I was at the Super.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think they're going to have the run in the AFC, and I think they're in a good spot for the Super Bowl again. But it's hard to do this every year, and they've essentially been in contention. You think of the last 5 years, every single year. Yeah, that's a lot of games, but I think they're up for it. And when you have a franchise quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, you're usually in pretty good place.
Yeah, it's going to work out. But to your point about it being hard to do, we know that, which is why the New York Jets don't even try to do it. It's that hard. They're like, we're good. The Jets.
Every once in a while.
Yeah.
They'll make a run every once in a while.
Yeah, 1969 by every once in a while.
Well, you got to pace yourself, Jimmy.
Fair. I respect that. That's the words of a true author right there. You have a good pace. I get it. A pleasure to talk to you today. Best of luck with this and everything you're doing.
Thanks, Jimmy.
My man. The great Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt.